This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And actually, my next guest, even though we're recording this virtually, is literally a stone's throw from where I'm recording this in Lancashire. And in fact, it's down to him that I'm actually in the office that I'm based in, because this is where we met about 18 months ago, although I've known this individual for quite a long time. And I cannot wait for you, our audience, to get to know him better in terms of his recruitment career, his leadership, but also his insights into a topic that I'm particularly passionate about. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to you all today, Alistair Collier, who is the founder of Altech. Welcome, Al. How are you?
Lovely. Thanks for having me. That was a glorious intro, wasn't it? And I did use the co-working space you're in for a while as well. So yeah, big fan. Great,
Yeah, big
great
shout
start.
out to if you are a Lancashire-based recruiter who is finding remote a bit of a miserable, lonely place, then you need to Google the Drop-Off Cafe in Edenfield because they have the most. This isn't it. This is just one of their little offices, but they have this gorgeous space, which is actually their function room, which Monday to Friday is empty. So I think it's a really nice space, and actually it's a great community. There's lots of different, got marketeers, tech people in there, all sorts of recruiters as well, thanks to me.
Love it.
So I know who you are and what you do because I've known you for a really long time, but there'll be plenty of people clicking on now that aren't familiar with your recruitment career and your prowess. So give us a potted history of your recruitment journey.
Of course. Yes, I'm Alistair Collier. I run a business called the Altech Group. But in its simplest form, we're a technology change and transformation and exec recruitment business. Founded in December of 2023.
Yep.
I suppose how did we get here was sort of the question you asked me off camera, and it's like a long and I don't know ever changing career as isn't it? But after leading businesses for other people for over 15 years, I think you can come to a time in life and where you know the timing is right to go and do it yourself. And some people do that early career, like it very naturally felt I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore, and that was it in its simplest form, really, Leisha. It was no more than um, I'd been on journeys with big businesses and small businesses and
Yep.
founders and leaders and CEOs, and it was my time. Um,
Love it.
and I think so much iteration, even in 16, 17 months around your why and what the business is. And so when you always say in the simplest terms, we're a technology and change and exec recruitment business, that's ever changing as well. Speak quite a lot internally with the hires that we've made into the business around, we're in an iterative stage at the moment around our identity a little bit. So
Mhm.
high level, that's what we do. And I think
Love
if
it.
we sat down this time next year, I'd be able to give you really laser detail around who we are as a business and where our specialisms are.
I love
Um,
that. And I love that. I mean, we've known each other professionally and, sort of locally because we're both Lancashire based, both up the road. But actually, the fact that your kind of purpose as a business is still evolving, you're so embryonic. I think that's really exciting because I think when we look at the landscape of where the most evolution comes from and where the most innovation comes from, it's usually in challenging markets. And I think we're about to see a hell of a lot more people listening, maybe not listening, but maybe watching in the future who have made that decision, whether it's through circumstance, whether it's through yourself, where it's just this realization, I've done it for other people, or it is somebody like you said, that's maybe earlier on in their career where they've got, entrepreneurial blood. They just want to
yeah,
crack on. So I think actually this will be a really important episode for people that see themselves as a, future entrepreneur or have already done this in the journey. But I think it's really nice to get someone like yourself that's, you're not new to recruitment, you're not
yeah,
new to recruitment leadership, but your business is still relatively new and you're in that sort of formative phase. And I think there's often a lot of navel gazing, isn't there, around purpose and this is why, but actually it's continuously changing because the market is continuously changing. But as we record this now, you're quite focused on regional recruitment. You seem to be the antithesis to every other recruitment leader I have on who's like US,
yeah.
Dubai. Why have you particularly focused on, because we're very regional. I always say we're parochial, we're regional. Why have you chosen to go down that route for now?
I think just going to, I'll answer this question. I want to cut back to purpose in a second as well, Leash, because I think that there's something that underpins everything as well. But I think more than ever, it's become more pertinent to me that the quality of strong regional specialist recruitment business, especially in our domain in technology, the quality is lower than ever, and that's because like people have been chasing. If you look over probably the last half a decade, there was the DAC market, the German market, Amsterdam, everybody through heaven and high water at trying to build a business over in Central Europe, and then obviously the US market has exploded as well. But all that's done, it's just dissipated the quality of regional recruiters, and actually, like by inverting that model and laser focusing on strong local community building, and by community I mean tech community in our instance, the opportunity is huge. And if you look at, and I'm going to go really granular because you've mentioned Lancashire twice here, but we're in a period of devolution in the county as well, and actually what that means is there's a demand and a want, especially where we're based regionally, to have local suppliers. And I'm a big believer. So all of our suppliers, when it comes to like non-SaaS products, are local. So every one of our suppliers we support are local. Like we want to build, we have an office in Manchester, but the business is based in Lancashire, in Rosendale. And as that operational footprint of the business grows, it will happen locally. And that means we can then look at opportunities to, I don't know, grow local talent and to support the ongoing growth of our business. And the reason behind it is I believe that there is a huge space in the short and medium term to almost move back 10, 15 years and go hyper focus around regional, high quality regional recruitment. So I suppose that's the answer.
It's a brilliant. We'll come back. We are going to come back to purpose. I'm not going to. I've pinned it. Don't worry. Don't worry. I will remember. I 100% echo everything, which is why when all through the, I mean, Key Recruitment is 20 years old this year, my business, and the amount of times people have said to me over the 20 years, you know, you should be doing this, you should be going global, you should, particularly since COVID, you should be doing America, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, and I've gone, there is so much business locally for me, particularly because I do leadership, that I am here on the ground. I can go and see clients, whether it's in Bolton or Blackburn or, you know, Bury or Manchester or Altrincham, wherever. I can literally jump in my car, go and spend the day, go and spend some time with the board or whoever it might be. And I think it will go full cycle, where I think that actually, if we fast forward 5 years' time, I think we will see the regrowth in that local expert who has created meaningful communities, you know, and I know this will segue very nicely back into purpose by, you know, ensuring you are, you know, almost cutting out all the noise of what everyone else is doing. And you know what? It ain't so great in the hills in America right now. It's a bit of risk, a bit of a gamble for a lot of businesses that have done it.
I think, 100%. But I'm also a big believer that you've got to be first to market, Leisha, and like, even if you're a fast follower, like that slice of the pie is restricted and smaller, and unless you're the business that spots the opportunity and maybe takes the risk up front, then you're only taking a smaller amount of the pie anyway. And so like we'll probably talk quite a lot about regional, but continuously mindful of where could we be first to market? You know, is there a location or a niche or a technology that we can build some real brand and collateral behind? So it's not that we're restrictive around our thinking, it's just around why would I've never done the US in any great volume, don't know it well enough to go and spend all my time and money trying to grow a business there.
Absolutely.
On the off chance that there might be some great big fees, and so like if you're first to market, then you can dominate the market. And if I look at what we're trying to, and dominate's quite an aggressive phrase, but what I'm trying to do right now is almost bring that local domination back into its fore. And if you look at other small tech recruitment businesses, they tend just to be one person bands, and so you do have them in Lancashire, in Cumbria, in Merseyside, in the more regional presence, but they don't scale particularly well because the good recruiters have never run a business. And that's probably where I can
Yeah.
bring a little bit more to the table, that I can still do the hands-on stuff really well,
Yeah.
but I know how to scale and grow business as well.
You
So
do.
hopefully dovetailing the two together, if that makes sense. So
Definitely. And a big shout out to those listening who are the one person
yeah,
band,
100%.
because you can create a very nice lifestyle business for
Yeah,
yourself. But I think that the challenge is always you are just that one person. When you go away, who's servicing your clients? So I think that's where I see that as the rec to rec market as well. The rec to rec market regionally is beyond saturation point, but you'll tend to find it's lots of one person, possibly two. So I think that's really interesting. So I'm going to unpin purpose. Let's float it back into the conversation. So why
yeah.
does purpose matter, first of all?
I think because without it, I don't think there's not any point in running a business. But if you don't have that like emotional purpose, I think it is. I don't think like you'd sit here in front of hundreds of founders or business leaders, and it'll all be about exit and financial return, and like all that stuff will happen if it does happen in time. But I think if there's not like an emotional purpose that drives you every single day, then you may as well go and do something else. And I think it just like lived experience, and this comes in. So Kate, my wife, is heavily involved in the business as well, and she deals with all of our HR and people and culture. And we were really, really, really steadfast on growing a mature business before people joined. And we had a conversation, myself and yourself, maybe 12 months ago, and we were looking at like EDI, CSR, like broader attraction for
Yeah.
Altech before we hired a person.
Yeah.
And I think that just looping that back into purpose is like, I believe that you can run a recruitment business that is truly unbelievable to work for, and not unbelievable to work for a certain demographic or a certain age, or but for all. And I would really, really, really have a hyper focus on how do we create an amazing business to work for. And that's like, I think that's maybe my strongest purpose as a huge people pleaser. It's creating this business where there's a better share of profit. There's a definite psychological safety for all, and like there's just the ability to go to work and earn well, but also genuinely be supported, empowered, and engaged to do so in the right way. And that's really, really important to us.
As you say all that, I'm just sat here thinking, why is this not default? But
Yeah,
it really isn't. Because what I like, and you're absolutely right, that before you even considered hiring anybody, you would put in all these foundations in place. And I think that's possibly where a lot of particularly embryonic businesses sometimes forget that you need to still have an EVP,
yeah,
even if it's just yourself. And, I'm not getting lost in marketing speak here. I think it's really important, because if you don't set out what your core values are, you then don't have anything in terms of selling a service to your clients, even if
yeah.
you've no ambitions to ever hire people yourself. So I think it's often missed by a lot of solopreneurs. And I think it's really, for me, it highlights where you will totally propel from a productivity and profit point of view, because you put the stall out at the start. And I
It's
think more
also
people should do that.
it's also really difficult to like retrospectively build culture as well. It's
Yeah.
like
Mm.
starting to think about this stuff once you've got a dozen people in your business. Like you've got things that will need
Yeah.
unpicking dramatically, and it's almost like we have this conversation a lot now around we're doing this now not for us and not for the people in the business right now, but for the next hires. And
Okay.
it's almost like there's a strong amount of maturity and conversation around, like just mentioned earlier, just around our activities of giving back into our local community and CSR.
Mm.
And and maybe that's not quite natural for some people in the business, but they're going to be our future leaders. They're going to be
Yeah.
part of our long-term journey. So we do things now because it will
Mm.
continue to help attract great people into our business.
Mm.
And again, that just like bakes it into your culture, I think, as well, Leisha.
It does, and I think it's, it really gives me goosebumps, the future-proofing element of, thinking, whatever the time frame is, that as you start to almost outgrow the talent pool that's immediate, you're looking at training and developing people coming from local, whether it's schools, colleges, whatever it might be. And it's almost like you say, gone almost full circle with it. No, I think you're living proof of your strapline to your clients, which is building teams to deliver. And actually, you're very often that the two are never really aligned. Very often, you find recruitment companies have got all these amazing marketing spiels and words on the walls, but actually, you're proving yourself with the cultural piece. So where, you have run teams very successfully. I know you've scaled, some significant brands that are very well known. Where do you think sometimes it doesn't really work? Like where are leaders failing to build teams that actually truly deliver?
I think we historically as an industry we're just so um, so closely aligned to the economy, and we grow and scale teams. And we should just look back over the last 5 years. We grow and scale teams aggressively when the market demands. Now, actually, I think we all need to have a look in the mirror and think about how we do it in a more appropriate way. What drives me bonkers is, and this is again retrospectively because I've been a part of this, but your market booms, you build huge delivery teams, the economy dips, you head towards recession, you remove delivery, you've de-skilled all of your great salespeople by not talking about how to develop business. And it's just this like almost a 5-year cycle that our industry goes into. And I think we could all take a strong look in the mirror and go, well, let's scale appropriately. And maybe all of the profit that you make in a great year, 21, 22, why don't we assimilate some of that cash into a pot for development of our people rather than continuously hiring more people into a business? And like real world experience of having to try and scale quickly in a buoyant market is really difficult because everyone else is having this huge success whilst you're trying to embed a team which is immature. Is really difficult actually, because then you've got that almost that external lens to look at other people and go, oh my god, they're absolutely they're cashing in and we're struggling a little bit. It's quite demotivating. And so just I think timing is everything really, Leisha, with growing teams, and making sure you make your decisions based on data and not market trends, I think is what
there's definitely a theme for recent podcast episodes where I've unintentionally been this huge data cheerleader, because I think that so often in recruitment it's the vanity metric around headcount. Even as you were describing there, that scenario of, the post-COVID boom, the frenzy, which is the only adjective I can think of people having to hire to try and keep up with demand, was so, what's the opposite of strategic? Panic buy. And that's why we were left in this catastrophic situation post 22 boom of recruiters who, not only the ones you've described, of which there are many who have been almost de-skilled, like you say, because they were not encouraged to continue to build client relationships with their existing clients, never mind always having their eye on new client relationships. But also we didn't do any service, and we really, we lost a lot of good people potentially who could have had great careers because they were never trained in how to actually deliver a full process. It was just a case of quick. So I think what you said there is right. And for me, I think you've been, this is your second decade in recruitment. And I think we're in a really exciting time where founders like yourself, I think, are the epitome of what recruitment is going to look like, which from a strategy point of view is you're not fixated on, I want to get to X number of heads, I want to do this. It's, we are creating a business that is built on the foundations of purpose, values, CSR, truly diverse in terms of not just hiring for yourself, but how you hire for your clients and the markets that you operate within. But it's doing it in a purposeful way and not just, that you made a point, it was possibly quite flippant, but that reinvesting into developing people and training people, it beggars belief that never gets talked about. Like business owners seem to just want to strip all the profit out, take them on the trip to Ibiza, whatever, and then, oh, by the way, we've not done any training this year. You should be contributing a budget every single year to every single person in your business, including yourself as a leader.
Yeah, it's difficult because like sometimes you become a charlatan because you never raise this in those periods of buoyancy, and but I think probably being and this is where the decision around why do it yourself. I think when that realization is, well, I can strategize with this now. It's not somebody else making the decision around more headcount, less resource into L&D, or the decisions around how and where you spend your cash. Like, that's probably the nicer things. The nicer things about running a business outside of like all of the things that we could sit and chat, which are really difficult. And I've never done that. And I talked about like being data led, and we'll look at key metrics for when we hire into our business. Like the strategy this year was one person a quarter, and we'll do that, but we'll do that based on fundamentally cash in the bank, and nothing more than that. Not sales, not whiteboarded revenue, but invoices paid and having enough money to look after these people for a set period of time. Like the commitment to everybody who's joined the business has been, I'm going to have a runway of cash for 6 months for us all to get paid. Irrelevant of anything else. If we don't have that, that's my commitment to you, that if we drop into COVID and the whole world explodes again, we can pay everybody for 6 months and all of our bills.
Hallelujah. Because the conversations that I often have with, really well-established companies, and I will often ask that question. I want the dirty down, I'm not saying show me your bank balance, but I'm kind of am. What is your runway for this individual to come in, but also for your existing team? And if I've got some clients saying, we've got a runway of 3 to 6 months, I'm like, oh, maybe you should just wait. To me, it should be 6 to 12 months runway, because we don't know what's around the corner. There's so many things out of our control. Like you say, we are such a barometer as an industry, aren't we? When it comes to hiring, and there's so many, mitigating factors. But I think the theme of this year is I think we just have to get on with it. Because there's so many things, so many variables. But I think that's really, that should underpin any business owner or leader that's hiring. This isn't about, oh, well, we've got, this recruiter's developing this relationship, and we can see a desk out of it. It's like, hang on, strategy, financial planning, what is the actual contribution this person's going to make? Then it's valid, then you go and hire them. And I think it's just much more sensible. Sounds much calmer. So building the team dynamics around your strategy, what happens if we've done that and then you're on this trajectory? Have you ever had to, and you don't need to give specific examples, where the team dynamics have shifted, where you've noticed that people's contributions have either shifted, maybe purpose has changed? What's your advice to founders that maybe find themselves in that position where the cash cow ain't making that much money anymore, or maybe the cash cow is making money, but they're an absolute blooming nightmare?
That's the biggest challenge of our industry, isn't it? Right? It's I think it's making and this is where I'm in a luxurious position here, because you don't have to unpick that cultural nuance where someone has been allowed to create a persona which is counterproductive to the strategy of the business. And I would say now, and this, I've never had the ability previously to action on this, and that's the reality. As long as you could be number one, number two, number three in a business, if you're not number one, you can't make these decisions finite. I just would never let that happen in Altech. So it's hiring people with like capability and credibility and ability to deliver in any market, any number. But being a decent human being as well. And like, you walk into these offices and it says no dickheads or whatever on a wall, but inevitably they're the business that harvests quite a few. And it just comes down to like having a really, really diverse spectrum of personalities in your business. And I spoke to you about this as well, but we use insights, and previously I've used Myers-Briggs. I'm a big believer of hiring and also managing through personality, but making sure there's diverse set of personalities is essential for me. Like different opinions on everything, like doesn't stunt creativity, because you're not just hiring the same mold of individual time and time again. But if that person is like being counterproductive to your strategy or your vision or your values, you have to remove quickly, and it's irrelevant of how much revenue that person can bring, because if somebody's doing £500,000 permanent revenue, but you're losing 2 or 3 heads
Yeah.
that are worth 600-700 grand to the business, it's
Yeah.
counterproductive.
Yeah.
And you can always wrestle some of that revenue back from a high performing idiot, because like restricted covenants, you're probably going to retain some of the client relationships, not all of.
No.
How do you avoid it? I think it just comes down to your hiring and your strategy around hiring. And again, I'm in a luxurious position now where I can dictate that. But 21 and 22, I think a lot of businesses probably just fell into that horrible trap of just like, get bodies in the door.
Yeah.
Let's worry about revenue over over your
Over
value.
building culture. And that's why I think we're in the mess that we're in. I mean, I actually hated being a rec to rec that year, particularly 22, because I could see what was happening. I could literally, I remember saying it about the April. So we still had another sort of few months before the markets crashed in 23, when Meta, obviously that was, for me, that was the trigger. That's kind of what cascaded the whole tsunami of redundancies in 23. But 2022 was just awful. Because you'd be trying to have this sort of meaningful conversation, whether it was with a candidate or a client, and it was just people didn't care. So I think maybe we needed to do it. Maybe we needed to have the pain, and then we all kind of learn a lot of lessons. Well, have you got a podcast, Al? Have you got any plans to host? Because you do a lot of community stuff, don't you?
I do a lot of local stuff and a lot in the tech space, but no, nothing on the cards for podcasting right now.
You should, in your dark room.
The darkest room, yeah.
The darkest room. If you're not watching this and you're listening, Al's looks like it literally. It's very nice. It's beautiful color, like dark blue, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, we need to bring you out into the light. And in terms of community, do you host sort of live events for your clients and stuff, roundtables?
Yeah, so I've always been quite heavily invested in the change and transformation community in Manchester. So I ran the Manchester Change Forum for the last decade with some brilliant key professionals in the industry. I do a lot with the Lancashire digital ecosystem, so quite heavily invested in Rosendale, but the broader county as well. And like as the business grows, like as part of our marketing growth, we'll do more. I'm a big believer in building communities.
Yeah, I do. And I think this is the great thing about you. Like maybe it's the sort of Lancashire mindset of, we just say it as it is, don't we? But you've kind of been doing all the stuff that everyone's trying to quickly do. You've always been doing it that way.
Yeah, I suppose. But it's and there's probably a balance here that I think that it's really important that you're doing it because you want to and you're interested and invested, and not purely from a commercial perspective as well. And I think it's sometimes lost, especially in tech recruitment, that you could go to an event hosted by a recruitment business continuously, but if they're doing events for an immediate commercial return, they're horrible.
You're never gonna build credibility doing that. I think anyone that's either thinking that's a way forward, because it's definitely a buzzword, isn't it? I must say the word community on my podcast when I listen back about 100 times, but you have to see it as a long-term way to demonstrate your knowledge and insights, not because it's a commercial commodity. And if that's your intention, there's very few people that really do commoditize it and can retire off it. That shouldn't be the way you do it, in my opinion. But
I agree. Like you've probably spoke about this a million times as well on the podcast, but your network is everything in our industry, and it gets easier as you get older. Because the people who you were placing as software developers are now the CTOs, and actually the only reason I had confidence after not doing huge amounts of hands-on recruitment for I don't know, the last half a decade was that I'd still maintained and nurtured a network which was really, really strong. And I think if you look at that timing of when should I do this and why should I do this, just ensuring that like you've got a strong network through these community of events and just like great service over the years, just ensuring that that's in place. Because I couldn't imagine how difficult it would be if you just set up and had a blank canvas and your BD strategy was just.
If you've not, because of course you've not been hands-on, how's that been?
It's been fine. So I've done bits and pieces, and probably more over the last 3 years than I did for the previous 4 or 5 years, in all honesty. But it's like, I don't know, it's nervy to start because it was the realization if I can't make placements anymore, I'm going to be in yeah, I was gonna swear, but it was gonna be a challenge from day dot. And obviously, we started the business in January 24, and the market was horrendous. And so,
Well, yeah.
but it just came through. And I suppose that the job is really, really simple, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
we always
it can
overthink
be. We
treatment.
sometimes overcomplicate it, don't we? Oh, that's the truth.
100%.
And listen, you can swear, by the way, because that's the beauty of podcast, but it's fine if you don't want to. I respect your
Oh
mature
God, no,
approach
it's
to
more
it.
for you than me.
I know. No, I'm fine with it. People know that I've got a bit of a potty mouth. But no, I'm glad I asked you that because again, I think we had Max Learmonth on in it would have been 2024, and he obviously had been like yourself. He'd been in a
Mm.
leadership role. He hadn't built for years, and
Yeah,
when he launched, I see you two as quite similar in terms of what he's done and what your the trajectory. Because I think he's a year or so ahead of you.
yeah,
And that's exactly what he had to literally roll his sleeves up. And he'd done the same thing. He'd ensured he'd always kept connected to the senior leaders within his community. So it just
yeah.
makes, I think, BD just more meaningful. You're not just like they're cold calling all the time, but I think it's always very
Mhm.
refreshing. And it means then you understand the drivers and what's happening in your market. So as you're hiring in recruiters, you know what they're going through. You understand. It's not like recruiting it 15, 20 years ago. It's different. So now I've got huge respect and I can't wait to see how your business grows because I think that you are an absolute gem as a human being. You're a gem because I think you're just a really lovely person. I think you're proof that you can run a successful business and be really nice and kind and not be an arsehole. There, I said it.
Well, there you go. But I think if you just going back to someone like Max, I think he's, and I don't know him personally, but he comes across as authentic. And I
Yeah.
think if you look at, so there's probably a dozen leaders, founders who I
Mm.
know and engage semi regularly. And this is another thing I think is super important. If you are going to found, like having a relationship with people who do the same thing is really important.
Yes.
And the one thing that irrelevant of their quality, the attribute that they bring um, like every single day is authenticity. Like genuinely, the people who I look to and go, I really like your business. I really like you as a human, whether they're making loads of money or not
Yeah.
lots of money. They're
Yeah.
all intrinsically themselves, and
Yeah.
I really rate that, and I think that's needed.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's just that's what I mean. I just think we're at a really exciting point in time where I think, because of social media, there's just so much content. So I think the only way to stand out against the homogenized and the AI chat GPT
Yeah,
generated posts
yeah,
is just to genuinely be yourself. And I think you can't overthink that. You just have to do it and you have to put yourself out there. And I actually think I'll have to talk about this on camera. I think you and Max get on really well. I think you should
yeah.
definitely connect. So there you go. We'll do a little shout out to him. But yeah, thank you for that. And you continue doing what you're doing because I think you do it authentically brilliantly. And we love knowing you. So thank you for joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.
Thanks for having me.